right. Good morning, everyone. I'm just pulling up the script for Alan. Actually, could you resend it to me?
Yep, no problem.
All right, welcome everyone. I'm Senator John Morgan from Senate District 23. Today we'll be conducting a regular meeting for the Commission to study expanding the mental health court system in New Hampshire. Before we get started, I'll read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting we're holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As chair of the Commission to study expanding the mental health court system in New Hampshire, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note, there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We're utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom or YouTube and via phone by following the directions and links provided on the General Court website. We have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. We're providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remote-senate, that's one word, remote-senate at leg.state.nh.us or call 603-271-3043. In the event the public is unable to access this meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken, did someone jump in there and say something? Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Finally, let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state where they are and if anyone else is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. And Mr. Barry, can I ask you to continue being the clerk for, thank you so much, sir.
You got it.
Representative Cannon.
Hi, I'm at my home in Somersworth, New Hampshire, and there's nobody else with me.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Birch.
I am home in Westmoreland, New Hampshire, and just by myself.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Mary Beth Waltz.
I'm in my car in Concord, New Hampshire, and no one is with me.
Thank you, Representative. Commissioner Helen Hanks.
Morning. I am quarantining at my house for pre-surgical reasons, not because I have signs or symptoms, in Tilton, New Hampshire, with my 2 dogs, and my 15-year-old is in another room doing remote school. Lucky me.
I empathize with you more than you know, Commissioner. Mr. Buffetti.
Good morning. I'm at the Department of Justice, my office by myself.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Taylor. Hunter Taylor? Jill O'Neill?
I am in my office at Greater Nashua Mental Health Center, and I am alone.
Ms. Stearns.
Good morning. I'm at my home in Samberton, New Hampshire. I am not alone in the residence. My partner is here, although I am using a headset and microphone, but the doorway is open.
Thank you. Mr. Jake Berry.
Yes, good morning. I'm here in my home in Manchester with my dog in the room.
Judge Nato is not with us, but in her place, we have Mr. Casal. Is that correct?
Yes, Alex Casal here for Judge Nato. I'm at my home, by myself in my home in Alton, New Hampshire.
Thank you. Judge King.
Good morning. David King. I'm at my home in Loudon by myself.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Golden.
Hi, good morning. I'm Shelley Golden. I'm in Thornton, New Hampshire in my home. I have 2 dogs with me and my college-age son who is doing his studies in a different room of the house in a closed door.
Thank you. Ms. Varney.
Cynthia Varney in New Boston, New Hampshire. I am alone.
Ms. Sullivan.
Hi, I'm at my home in Manchester, New Hampshire. I do have 2 cats. I apologize if they try to get some screen time. Seems like every time I'm on a video call, they want to get in the screen, so.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Mr. Starkey.
Hello, I am at my office in Keene and I am alone with the door closed.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Scavarelli.
Good morning. I'm in my office in Concord, New Hampshire, and the door is closed. I'm alone.
Ms. Davis.
Actually, it's George Waldron. I'm the Deputy County Attorney. Robin couldn't be here today, but I'm attending in her place, and I'm alone in my office.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. And I am Senator Morgan. I'm here in Exeter with alone in the room for the time being. Kids are on school in the other room. All right. Thank you, everyone. That was a very long roll call. And everyone has received the draft report, and I would just like to take a moment to publicly recognize the efforts of Mr. Barry. Jake, thanks so much for helping us to put that together. It was very comprehensive at 17 pages, and I think that it does a great job of summing up the work that we did, but also some of the findings and recommendations that this commission will potentially be putting forward following this meeting. I would like to open it up to discussion, since there are normally we would just kind of have a regular free discussion, but given that there are so many of us, if you could either raise your hand on the panelist, on the side of the panelist. I can't actually see everyone on my screen right now. But if you'd raise your hand via the Zoom platform, if you do have input you would like to share with the rest of the commission, I think that would be the most orderly way that I can acknowledge you. Alan, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say we got our first hand, and it's not the Honorable Tina Nato, but
I'm all over that one. Thanks.
Okay.
Alex.
So even though it's not Tina Neto, I'm going to read an email that she sent to me with comments after reading the report. So she just wanted to follow up, say, with the need for standards before doing anything statewide, and then suggesting again that there not be a separate state coordinator for the mental health courts, although that we would need somebody to do the work, whether it be, like somebody in my particular office within the judicial branch, as opposed to having an identical role doing exactly what I do, but on the mental health court side, kind of having more of a team. And so I don't know if it would be more of like somebody that's more of like a data analyst, or somebody who's, experienced grant writing. So then the office could oversee both the drug courts and the mental health courts with multiple people, instead of having 2 individuals, one statewide drug court coordinator, one statewide mental health court coordinator. And then also she stated that that it not be designated to one specific court rather than the judicial branch. So like if the commission says that it should be in the circuit court or in the superior court, rather having that decision be made up to the judicial branch as to where that particular mental health court would sit, because each jurisdiction can be a little bit different in terms of if they have one circuit court in that entire county, that makes sense. But if they have 3 circuit courts, it might not make sense to have 3 separate mental health courts in that particular jurisdiction, it might make sense to put it in the Superior Court that would cover that particular jurisdiction. So she was just asking that that decision be left up to the judicial branch and not be put into, the standards.
Okay. And Alex, if you're able to either add a bullet to the recommendations, given what you just said, or multiple bullets is fine, but just so that the committee can see in writing what would be changed on the draft report as it is currently. If you could send that to either me or Jake. My email is just the easiest one is just, I guess we have to do the legislative one. Alan, can we use your legislative email? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's no problem.
So
guys,
it's go Alan, ALAN dot Raff, RAFFE. Is that correct, Alan?
no, RAFF is in French fry.
At leg.state.nh.us, I think.
Thank you.
You got it.
Great. And next is Ms. Gavarelli.
Good morning, thank you. I had two comments. The first of which is when we started the commission, we certainly were not involved in the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think funding certainly was not as much of an issue at that time. I recognize that the court has at this point, it's looking at a 10% reduction in its budget across the board. And there's already discussion about whether to scale back or eliminate drug courts within the state of New Hampshire. Given that we were trying to tie in resources with the drug court program already with many of our recommendations, I'm wondering if we should consider how that's going to impact the recommendations we make with the mental health court expansion. The second comment I wanted to make was in response to the comments that Alex Cassell just brought up. I personally would recommend that we implement, if we were to go forward with the mental health courts, in the Superior Court level, so that we could use the resources that are available with the trained judges and trained stakeholders already involved in the system, and so that there is more consistency in how the programs are being implemented. My concern is now that there are many mental health courts on a circuit court or district court level that are wildly inconsistent in how people are eligible to gain entry and how they are treated during the participation of mental health court. So for more consistency, I would make a recommendation that it be handled on the Superior Court level.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gavarelli. And would you same request for the commission to be able to view it and then make a final recommendation? Just email it. It's Alan, ALAN dot RAFF at leg.state.nh.us.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you. Next, the chair calls Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you, Senator Morgan. So, and thank you for sponsoring this. I think this is really important. And my recommendation, moving forward as we further study the mental health courts and expansion, is to at least establish right now some consistency in terms of the data that's being collected across the courts. The mental health courts are collecting data, but they're collecting the data in a different way. And so when we look to study this further, it would be important to be able to have uniform data to look at trends across the board. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Sorry, I muted myself. Thank you very much, Ms. O'Neill. And on that, so would you be able to just do a real quick snippet, Jill, on to send over to Alan for us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alan, I know this is outside of your typical charge, so thanks for being willing to take that on. Judge King?
Thank you, Senator. I just want to follow up on what Tracy said and what Alex said on behalf of Judge Neto. I think there's an inconsistent message there, and I would hesitate to make a recommendation that we have a blanket recommendation that the mental health courts be in the superior courts for the reasons that we talked about at least one of the meetings, and that is that circuit courts have 35 locations around the state, and the superior court have only 11. So if you have someone, for example, in North Country, where I'm from, that lives in Pittsburgh and needs to be in the mental health court and has to go to Lancaster, that's an hour and a half on good roads when it's not snowing. So I think in a lot of the rural counties around the outside of the state, to put these in superior courts, and some of the superior courts don't have full-time judicial coverage either. So I think if we leave it more to be determined by the judicial branch where they best land, we can probably work that out rather than pigeonhole us into one of the two courts. So I think that's my recommendation at this point.
Thank you, Judge King. You know, I'm just gonna, Commissioner Hanks, I do see you. Just one quick second. Tracy, did you want to? Is your hand up again, or is that just still up? Okay, no problem. So on that note, and you know, I hear the competing sides of this. This is my perspective. This is not. I'm not. I think we're going to need to take a vote on this. My perspective is the second bullet point on the the third bullet point on the draft recommendations. I'm just going to read it really quick, and this is where I'm at with this. It says, given the lack of national best practices and strategies, the Commission feels further study is required and a professional consultant should be secured to review successful programs in other states and localities to identify the best model for New Hampshire. Further evaluation by a consulting organization will help to better assess our state's specific needs and identify best models for staffing and structure, among other considerations. This will best position policymakers to adopt a statewide program of mental health courts that maximizes both access to treatment and savings to taxpayers in the years to come. Given just where we are at and the lack of progress that we were able to make as a result of hitting the wall that was COVID, the COVID pandemic, I think that we're going to probably need to move in the direction of having a consultant to dive into the details of this situation that we are in order to make more fulsome recommendations and give us a thorough analysis of where we are and the trajectory that we could get onto. So that's just my perspective, and we could talk about it further. Commissioner Hanks, you're up.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to, it's an after comment. I think the recommendations really strike to the concerns and inertia this committee discussed, including identifying training and consistency. What strikes me is the concept of travel and what we've all had to overcome in the last numerous months, which is to use these types of platforms we're using today. And could we incorporate some recommendation, and certainly what you just referenced in that bullet, hiring a consultant, but recommendations on the use of technology, because just as one concept in a mental health court, depending how the state was to move forward, the client in question could be at their local mental health center participating in a judiciary session, and just sort of thinking out of the box, using technology as our advantage and a resource in this type of model in the state of New Hampshire.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there further comment, input? Ms. Golden.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. In regards to the recommendation to use a professional consultant, I personally, being the coordinator of the mental health courts that we have in Grafton County, and also sitting on the New Hampshire Mental Health Court meetings that we have with all the coordinators monthly. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I know that a lot of other coordinators feel the same, is that we think it would be helpful to have a consultant to work with, and we would invite that person, whoever it is, or if it's a group or however it works, but into our monthly meetings to help draw from the program statistics that we've already gathered over the years, and to look at our processes in the different courts, and to be able to, lend a hand as much as we possibly can.
Sorry about that. It's kind of ironic that Commissioner Hanks was just talking about the technology issues, and then my battery told me that it was going to die, so run to get a charger.
Nice.
Very good. So are there any further, and thank you, Ms. Golden, are there further, is there further input from the commission? Yes, please.
Yes, please. I did have one question about one of the bullets. It's on page 3. It's third from the bottom of the page. It says, with funding, the commission felt there should be emphasis on both justice involved and non-justice involved individuals. I was wondering if someone could help me remember what that might mean. I wasn't clear.
I suppose I may have drafted that, and to be honest, Shelley, I don't recall. I assume I drew that from minutes from one of the meetings, but I don't recall what it's referencing, to be honest.
I think I might be able to shed some insight. So I think it refers to individuals who are either convicted of a crime and enter into mental health court as a track 1, or track 2 is if the case is placed on file without a finding or conditionally null prossed. So they will not have an actual conviction, but need to complete the program in order to avoid that conviction coming forward at a later date.
Okay, that would make sense to me. That's how I would, yeah. Okay, so if that's what it means, yes, that sounds good. I'm for that.
Based on that, is there language that you would suggest we add to clarify?
I would maybe say non-adjudicated.
Non-adjudicated, okay. Justice involved and non.
I would agree with that. I think the term justice involved usually includes really any involvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So adjudicated or non-adjudicated.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill.
I had a question for Alex with regards to Judge NATO's recommendations in terms of, instead of creating a separate mental health court like statewide liaison, and more so using some of the resources existing at the judicial branch for supporting drug courts. What would that look like, Alex, in terms of the supports that could be offered to the mental health court using the existing resources?
Well, since the judicial branch has a finance department, and we have, internal auditors, and we have myself, we feel that those different supports that I utilize now would also be involved in this. So if there's a fiscal note and we're able to fund the mental health courts, then our finance department would be helping out to make sure that everything is operating correctly. And if we're paying for things like office space, I'm sure our auditor would want to look at any kind of leases and things like that. So that's the kind of support. And so I think that she meant that we could add possibly a position to the drug offender program coordinator office, but it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's only designated for mental health court. So they could kind of help out in that pool. So when earlier when I was speaking, she didn't put it particularly in her email or bullet point, but I was just thinking of like other states like Idaho has a somewhat similar setup like we do, but they also cover their mental health courts. And so there's one statewide coordinator that oversees it, and then I don't think it's called a deputy, but his second in his office is more of a data analyst, and that data analyst covers both the drug courts and the mental health courts to make sure that things are entering in properly, that the state gets the proper information that they need in any kind of reporting or things like that. So to have a second person that might not necessarily be the content expert, but they have their own discipline that they're an expert in to kind of help out the overall office. And so it could be that, or like I said, maybe somebody that's more of a grant writer, so that the state can go after additional grants for both the drug courts and the mental health courts. They obviously would be working with with myself and with the mental health courts, but not necessarily in the exact same carve-out role that I have with the drug courts.
Thank you. Can I ask or make a follow-up recommendation, Senator Morgan?
Yes, of course.
So I think when we are looking at establishing consistency, best practices, the recommendation I would have is the consultation that extends to each individual program and help to support their communities. We heard from the chief of police from Littleton, who spoke about his support for the mental health court, but that there wasn't across the board buy-in. Having sat in that role personally, and at the time that I entered into the role, it took a lot of work, which speaks to the integrity of the programs, in order to be able to create the buy-in, just to say that this program is effective, and to get the buy-in so referrals came through and they were the right referrals. So the consultation that's needed in the future, and my recommendations, is at the individual program level, not to forsake all of the other support that Alex is mentioning in terms of the data and the grant writing piece. So that's my recommendation in terms of additional points. Thank you.
Thanks. Would you be able to send that over to Alan, just so we can have a
yes, I can.
compilation? Yes, thanks. All right. Further input. Okay. Alan, what have you received so far?
Nothing yet.
Okay. So, members, here's what the goal is. We theoretically could schedule another meeting if we had to. I would prefer not to do that out of respect for everyone's time. And I'm hopeful that we can take the draft report and additional recommendations that we've received today and move to a vote to include those as our recommendations with the commission's report. I would welcome any dissent to that. Ms. Scavarelli, it looks like, where are you? There you go.
Oh, right. I was not dissenting. It was poor being on my part. I was trying to find the raise hand, and then you said the dissent. I was like, oh no, that's so no. I was merely going to say that I would take back my recommendation that I made earlier in terms of where the court has to be located out of, based on the language that you referred to in the current recommendations. So I do not intend to send that over to Alan at this point, because I think that catch-all is sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Judge King. You're muted, Judge King.
If we go to the bullet points, if we just take out the middle sentence on the 1, 2, 3, the fourth bullet down, because it's kind of says the commission members agreed there needs to be a determination as to where they'll be hosted, and then it recommends the Superior Court, and then the third sentence talks about regardless of the chosen court. So I think if we just eliminate the middle sentence, it leaves us with enough wiggle room to figure it out amongst the judicial branch when we get there.
Jake, do you see that, and are you able to?
Yeah, so we're taking out the sentence that says the commission felt the court program should be housed within superior courts.
Before we do that, out of respect for everyone on the commission, is there anyone that would like, is there anyone that feels strongly that that needs to not be struck? All right, seeing none, let's strike that. Is there, Alex, did you want to submit anything over to Alan?
So I reached out to Judge Neto, and the reason she's not in this meeting is because I think she's on the bench right now and is unable to. So I don't think I'll hear back before the end of this meeting. But I didn't know if she wanted to write up bullet points or if she wanted me to do it. And since I probably won't hear back, I was just going to go ahead and do it. But you know, with regards to what I said, I mean, we could just kind of do what we're doing now, which is if we look at bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bullet point 6 on page 3, it says, like the drug court coordinator and the drug court system, the commission agreed that there needs to be a statewide mental health court coordinator. If we just wanted to briefly talk about, you know, changing that that sentence or that bullet point, or I could try and type something up and send it.
If Alex, I mean, if we want to explore that now, I'm happy to make the changes. I assume that most of us are on the same page in terms of housing this within the existing structure. Right.
And Jake, can you add in the word court between mental health, between health and coordinator?
Yeah.
Is there a new hand up? Because sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
Sorry. So I guess I'm a little confused as to, or I guess I would object to say supporting a statewide mental health coordinator. I understand that we might want to leave some room open for that, but I certainly think that the commission, when we met previously, we had agreed that that could be beneficial to engaging in a mental health court system on a statewide level. How we structure that specifically, I think can be determined at a later date, but at least I think language that we recommend exploring the option of having a statewide coordinator still needs to be part of our recommendations.
Just so that we lost, or maybe it was my connection, but I lost you for one brief second there, but I just want to make sure I understand. Do you suggest that we say, instead of the word needs in that bullet point, to say the commission agreed that that we may need, instead of making it okay?
So
Alex?
Yeah, if I could jump in. So if we do keep the word needs in there, we could say that there needs to be a statewide mental health court coordinator, or otherwise known as court liaison. We could add another point to that and say that there needs to be a statewide mental health court coordinator or additional staff to the drug offender program to assist with the mental health courts. So it could be either or. So if Tracy's saying that, you know, the commission agreed on this, we shouldn't just completely strike that and take it out and adapt it as we're going to continue on, you know, down this path, is to figure out what we need and don't need. Instead of just striking that, we could just add that additional point to it, So then it could be one or the other, basically saying that this commission agrees that there does need to be something. It needs to either be a statewide mental health court coordinator, or it needs to be an additional staff member to help out with that project. Does that make sense?
Tracy?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I thought he was asking you. Sorry.
Oh,
Yes,
I
think that does make I think that does make sense because, yeah, I just don't want to lose the original intent of the commission, which we had discussed pretty thoroughly initially. So I think giving the additional option would be sufficient.
Jake, are you able to share your screen so that we can all see these changes contemporaneously?
I'm calling in on my phone, so I can't right now. If you give me a minute to switch over. Let me, just to review here. So what I have now for this bullet point, and tell me if we want to strike the first provision. Like the drug court coordinator in the drug court system, the commission agreed that there needs to be a statewide mental health court coordinator or additional staff to the drug offender coordinator to assist with mental health courts. Is that what we're leaving? Alex, is that what you had in mind?
Yes.
I'll clean that up a little bit. But,
So I guess my only question though is, are we walking away from our original intent? Like, so are we looking at expanding the mental health courts to be under the umbrella of drug courts, or are we trying to establish a separate entity of mental health courts? I guess my only concern is that the needs of the two populations are dramatically different. And I want to make sure that those two populations are gaining the same level of care and attention that they deserve.
So if I may on that, and Susan, go ahead.
I guess I would sort of weigh in, not necessarily in the middle, but look at this as I do believe we do have a need for, shall we say, that full-time individual, that level of capacity to assist with coordinating mental health courts and this effort to expand them so there's equal access across the state. I also can see there's real value in not creating separate silos for mental health versus substance use. And I say that because there is so much, so much in terms of co-occurring. So in terms of, if I were to say what I think would be a best practice would be that they work very much in conjunction together. It's very hard to do all this hand stuff on Zoom. You know, I think I would be in favor of giving the judicial system the ability to create that, I guess, more integrated system by which to coordinate mental health court, drug court, one can hope perhaps veterans behavioral health tracks at some point, so that it is a cohesive department, so to speak. So I think while being clear on, you know, absolutely, I think the minimum would be one FTE in terms of capacity would be necessary to move this forward initially. I can understand, let's not make it so tight that it creates a separate silo. I don't think that ultimately will serve people living with mental illness and substance use disorder well if it is completely separate.
Hold on, Alex, 1 second. Judge King, did I skip you? Are you? Okay. Commissioner Hanks.
Thank you. And Sue, you could not have said it any better. When I heard the word integration, that's exactly in line with what I wanted to share. I think we want to leave the opportunity to recognize individuals with mental health disorders are inclusive of substance use disorders and not create such a bifurcation that the efficiency is lost when it's appropriate.
Thanks, Commissioner. And Ms. O'Neill.
So the way that I look at this, so we have the need to establish practices, consistency, and then there's the need to expand the courts. we don't necessarily have the data to support in across counties of the need. We don't have the data to look at the specific crimes, whether it needs to be in circuit court or superior court. We don't have the data to understand is how many are pre-adjudicated to post-adjudication. So we have limited data that really needs to be looked at in terms of how we move forward. And I do think it's important that we follow some of the best practices that were established through the drug court. And it's great to understand that there could be some resources, but looking at, to Ms. Corelli's point about what we look to establish, I think that the language that we use for the recommendation should be general and not too specific to tie it into something that would handicap us later on in the future.
Thank you. All right. So Jake is working on, Jake's going to share the doc with me. We're going to pull it up on the screen so everyone can see it at the same time. And then whatever changes we need to make, if there are, here's my plan. If there are ones that we can pull out that everyone agrees on the wording, then great. We can do one vote on all of the ones that we all agree on, and then we can pull out the more controversial ones or the ones that need a little bit more wordsmithing and work on those separately. But I think it would be helpful just so we can kind of knock a few of these out, and then and we'll see where we're at. So just give us a second here, and we'll get it pulled up for everyone.
All right, Senator, should be your way.
Which did you send it to which email address?
I sent it to your personal. I can send it to your other as well.
No, I'll find it. I've got it, Jake.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I may have shared the wrong document. Hold on a moment.
This one says 37 pages.
Yeah, I think I pasted it twice. But if for our purposes, the findings are on page is this? Come on.
I'm making you dizzy, folks. Just close your eyes. It'll be over soon.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know how-
Jake, I think we're on page 4. Can everyone see that? Can anyone not see it? Is more helpful of a question.
Okay.
Okay. So hopefully you can all, I can no longer see you, so you have to speak up if there's an issue here, but we're on the recommendations page, and this is the current working document that we're using to finalize the recommendations for this commission. So again, I can't see you. I can't see the, if you raise your hand, I might be able to, looks like I can see that. But just remember, I can't see your faces. So feel free to just speak. What I think is going to be most helpful is if, Jake, in the report, can we number the recommendations just for now?
I can try, sure.
So just highlight them out and then push the number button up at the top instead of the bullets.
Yep.
Judge King and Susan, just can I respectfully request you put the hands down on your screen. Thank you. And if you could just raise your hands if you have an issue with any of the numbers that that Jake is working on. So I'm going to scroll here so you can see from 1 to 5. And I'm just going to give you 3 minutes. So at 10:53, I'm going to move it down to the next recommendations. Alex?
On number 3, I don't know if it makes sense, and I'll just say a couple things, and then if it doesn't, then feel free to just say no. Is that I think a couple national organizations are looking into creating national best practice standards. Knowing that process can take a long time, a year or so, they wouldn't be out for a while. If we suggest that New Hampshire kind of comes up with their own standards, I would just like to also say, if national best practice standards are studied and submitted and put out there to the public, that we would then follow those, so that we don't have to then go back and change our New Hampshire standards to align with what national research has found. Because we could come up with our own standards, but they might not be exactly what national best practice standards would be down the road.
And who or what organization or entity would put out, quote?
So it's kind of up in the air. So the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, under their umbrella, they kind of helped. They did the drug court standards. They helped with the family drug court standards, even though family drug court is with children and family futures. and they they oversee all the veterans courts. For some reason, mental health courts are not under their umbrella. It's kind of like the outsider. There's DWI courts that the National Association oversees. There's all these different types of treatment courts. So it's kind of fallen under the Gain Center. However, I know that the National Association of Drug Court Professionals is interested in helping out with that project. So ultimately, I don't know who's going to be releasing it. It could be any number of entities. It could be the Gain Center, it could be the National Association of Drug Courts. I just know that there are players from 2 or 3 different organizations that are interested in starting that. I mean, they did talk about, is it feasible? And the answer was yes. So I don't really know where they are in that process, but the last time I asked them, I think it was probably 2-3 months ago, they said that they're looking into it, the National Association of Drug Courts. So I can't answer who it would be, but I know that came up in the drug court world. Drug courts that created their own state best practices then had to realign it when national best practices came out. And the same thing with the mental health courts. There's a lot of states out there that have their own, they call them their state standards. There might not necessarily be best practices, but they're just saying these are our standards. If and when a mental health court national best practice, study is done and best practices are released, then those states are probably going to have to go back. If it's written into legislation, we're going to follow these state standards that our state has come up with. They have to go back and basically just change the language. So I don't know if there's a way to put something in there to say that we will, that we will change our standards to align with the national best practice standards if and when those are released.
Yeah, I was going to say the current.
Say that the state standards will be in alignment with established national best practices as like the last sentence.
Yeah, or if national standards are adopted, New Hampshire shall align its own to reflect those.
Well,
Should we say if national standards are developed and deemed suitable for New Hampshire? Should we? Is that helpful, or Alex?
say if suitable national standards are developed, or if
Yeah.
Well, line it's.
Folks, is that what do y'all think?
I think that's good just because we don't know where those national standards might come from. And so at this point, given that there is no uniform best standards, I would hate for us to adopt some that others do not feel are appropriate.
I tend to agree with that. All right, I'm gonna shift the screen down unless anyone tells me not to. So let's just take a couple minutes here, and again, raise your hands or speak up if there's anything of note.
I just wanted to clarify or change one word. So on number 6, when we go down to the additional stuff that Jake added, where it says additional staff to the drug offender coordinator, it would be additional staff to the drug offender program. Just that one word. Yeah. Thank you.
I would suggest we remove the phrase otherwise known as a court liaison, just because that typically in the mental health court realm is the individual who really is working as a liaison between the mental health system and the court system, sort of a direct service position, which I don't think we're envisioning here.
So I suppose, do we want to keep the second part of this provision? Do we want to keep the provide management and oversight within the mental health court system, or is that to be replaced by to assist with mental health courts in the sentence above? You know what I mean?
I think
it's important that we keep it.
Thank you.
Just because, you know, that person, whatever their title is, whatever capacity they're going to be working in, they are still going to be helping, you know, provide management and oversight within the mental health court system. I mean, they may not be designated the statewide coordinator, or maybe they are going to be, but a big part of that role would be to, you know, help out with the mental health courts and oversee them.
Position will help to provide management oversight.
And Alex, I had a quick question in terms of the position titled drug offender program. Is it drug court program, or is it technically referred to as drug offender?
Unfortunately, the latter. It was adapted when the drug court legislation was right before it was passed, but they said, well, we want to incorporate not just the drug courts, but if a county decides they want to do an alternative to the drug court, so therefore we're going to call it drug offender program.
Okay.
Is that, Alex, if I get to come back in this seat, we should talk about that going forward.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. Any other issues for the parts that you can see now? Okay, I don't see any hands. I'm going to keep moving. Oh, that's it. So number 9 is the last one. Are there any? Sorry, go ahead.
Is the wording in number 9, and I guess I'm really looking to Judge King for this, sufficient? I think we had some pretty frank conversations around there needs to be an investment in order to fill those judicial vacancies and create the capacity necessary. Is this language strong enough to give that? I guess I heard some urgency during our meetings around this need. Is that conveyed?
I think it's conveyed. I'm not sure I'd use the word specialized, because I don't think we envision having judges who do only mental health court, but certainly specific training would be important. I appreciate, Susan, it would be nice if we could say to fill the current judicial vacancies, but I know the reality of the current budget situation because we just submitted our budget. So I'm not sure that this is going to go a significant way to get those filled, but we can't overstate the need to have sufficient judges to be able to roll this out, because we don't have them right now.
So I'm a little concerned about taking out the word specialized, in that I understand that the court may have its own challenges, but we do not expect it to be one judge only working with mental health court. But at the same time, in drug court, there is one judge who is assigned to do drug court. So that way they have consistency with the participants, they have consistency with the stakeholders, they're part of the drug court team. Would the circuit court envision having that type of assignment, or are you suggesting that you envision it sort of being a rotating door in terms of which judge sits on the bench?
No, I think in the multi-judge courts of where we have a number, there would be a judge who would be assigned. In the more rural areas, we would probably not move judges just to go to do a mental health session once a week or once a month or whatever the cadence turns out to be. But not every judge in the circuit court would be assigned a mental health docket. It would be those who had the special training in frankly, the desire to do it so that they would do a good job. But specialized to me means that's all they do. At least that's my interpretation of that word.
Okay. Would assigned judges?
Maybe trained and specially assigned might
Okay.
get at what you're looking for, Tracy. That we're not just going to have everyone do it.
Right, yes.
And there'll be some expense to the training, so we're not going to be able to afford to send 50 judges to training. So,
Right, yes. I just wanted to make sure that the intent behind our recommendations is that one judge sticks with the program so that there is consistency for the participants.
yeah, I think that's the only way that it really works well.
Right.
All right. Are there any, so we've gone through, we have the 9 recommendations. Are there any that are problematic for anyone on the commission that we want to take out, discuss separately, not vote on? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Thank you, Senator. And in looking at 9, understandably, if the system that's developed includes the use of probation and parole officers, those probation and parole officers would also need training, and we would need additional resources. Again, I'm a little hesitant to include it here. We reference it in our findings above because the system is not designed yet, and we haven't identified which. We really haven't developed the system. I just want to make sure I say it at this point.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, if is there a change or an addition that you would like the commission to consider as an alternative?
Maybe what I could do is send a suggested revision on the finding to the group, just to strengthen the comment if probation and parole officers are intended to be utilized in any state mental health court system, they will also need training and potentially additional resources.
Jake, are you trying to incorporate that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had talked about doing it in the findings section.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Just strengthen the findings section because we're not saying it's a definite part of the resource. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to go find my Word document and I'm definitely at a loss because I normally operate off of 2 screens. So.
Yeah.
Is there an ability to look at number 6 and add a component into that in terms of the including probation, parole, and add a component of training into the last line?
I like that recommendation, Jill. I think that makes sense. If probation and parole officers are used in the model, they will also be provided additional training and an examination of whether additional positions will be done. And
I'm sorry, Commissioner, would you mind repeating it one more time? What you just suggested?
If the system, if the mental health court system utilizes probation and parole officers, those probation and parole officers, sorry, someone must be pulling into my yard.
Shall be provided additional training.
Additional training and a review of, I just don't want the state to be in the situation we are again. I must be getting, everyone, I must be getting a delivery of oil at my house.
So I was just going to state, if we're going to get that granular, then I think that we would need to identify all of the other stakeholders stakeholders who are going to be responsible for participating in this program to also have appropriate funding and training, because it envisions such the Public Defender's Office having a mental health court coordinator for each and every court. That's going to be additional staffing and resources on our end as well. So while I appreciate the probation department's need to have appropriate staffing, I think if we're going to start adding that, then we need to start adding that for every stakeholder who's responsible for participating in this drug court or mental health court.
In recommendation 5, we refer to the need for adequate funding and staffing. Do we want to add a provision there to say that there's, there will need to be, sufficient training for all those involved? Would that?
I was actually thinking of number 6, the last, to add basically a clause in that this dedicated position would be responsible to coordinate training needs amongst stakeholders.
Commissioner Tracy.
I don't disagree with Tracy at all, and I have put the dog in another room. I think that it's profound, and maybe some incorporation as a completely separate recommendation that in order for any system that comes out, all areas and funding need to be analyzed to ensure adequate resources are deployed so the system can be successful. And
I think that's what number 5 is trying to get at.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to echo what Commissioner Hanks said. I believe it was the very first meeting when I kind of overviewed the drug courts and the process, and what we found was that it was a burden on those agencies that were not included in the funding, but it required additional staffing. So, judges, probation parole officers, public defenders, county attorneys, those offices were already in existence, but it occupied a lot more of their time when you add a program to a specific jurisdiction. So if we were to go back in time, that's something that we probably should have looked at, increase either funding or staffing for multiple agencies to be able to absorb the drug courts. Now the judges, they were seeing those cases anyway, so it wasn't like we needed to add 3 new judges or 6 new judges. That was fine. But probation, parole, public defenders, like their caseloads are already maxed out, and so then to add this additional burden was a lot for them. So I don't know if, I think that's what, Helen, what you were getting at. And Tracy, I understand that, the public defender's office is also, under a lot of, have high caseloads as well. So just to kind of put that in there somewhere, whether it be number 6 or number 5 or, in the training thing, or just that, an additional, program, especially potentially a statewide one of this size, will add additional burdens to all those agencies.
But if we just say all stakeholders in number 5, because if we have a laundry list, we're sure going to leave somebody out. So if you say all stakeholders in the system need to be adequately funded and staffed, that includes public defenders, prosecution, probation, parole, arguably everybody that will touch the system.
Right. I think if we identify that any organization that's required to participate or is asked to participate in the mental health court teams should be adequately staffed and funded.
I think this would come out based on the, say a professional consultant came out. There's some sort of language that should be included around the results of the assessment done by the professional consultant.
I would agree with that. I hear us speaking about what we call a team for each mental health court that consists of a public defender, a prosecutor, a case manager. Sometimes it's probation and parole, depending on which mental health court it is. The judge, right, part of the team, just like drug treatment court. So depending, I agree. It sounds like depending on what the professional, the consultant's going to say, that we can respond and include those people in the training, but also with funding, because we, I mean, some of the mental health courts already have county contracts that they pay the community mental health centers to be a part of the mental health court teams and provide services. So I like the idea of keeping it more open.
I like the revision that just occurred in 5. I think that helps to acknowledge there are multiple parties that will be affected, and for the system to be successful, we need to make sure we fund and staff them.
Is that Commissioner Hanks?
That was me.
Getting back to our initial point on it, do we want to add a reference or a line about training? I mean, we could even say all participating agencies and organizations must be adequately funded and staffed, and training needs must be met, or something along those lines.
You could just go funded, comma, staffed and trained.
Does that cover it? Sure.
I think so.
That's good.
And then with the last sentence you added in 6, Jake, I think it ties it all together.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for working through that. Any additional areas of concern, edits?
Should there be an additional, this is Susan, should there be an additional recommendation specific to using virtual platforms? I just think about, you know, we all know that the next biennium, budget for next biennium is going to look a lot different probably than what any of us might have imagined when we last met in January. And I think certainly what I have heard, and I would defer to the folks, you know, who are working actively in the judicial system, is that there have been some efficiencies with using some of these virtual platforms, and just thinking some of these things may get really stuck because of funding issues, but some things by using technology perhaps could move forward, and even as there may be a wait in terms of adequate funding. So should there be a recommendation specific to that? And again, I would defer to those who are doing the work on a daily basis.
I know that, you know, the use of our virtual platforms has become a lot more standardized, and I know that we're all far more used to it these days, for better or for worse. I had the same thought, Susan, that there may be a role to play, and it may help to reduce some costs. I guess Judge King and Alex, anyone please jump in, but I'm curious to know both of your thoughts on a potential 10th recommendation regarding the use of virtual platforms
Well, we have certainly been doing very few in-person hearings since March 16th. The Circuit Court has done over 60,000 hearings since then, most of which have been telephonic, some by WebEx, and some cases lend themselves well to virtual hearings and are actually more efficient, and a lot of hearings take a lot more time and are a lot more difficult. So I would want to be really generic that, and I don't know whether that'll be a best practice or whether folks should be seen in person, but certainly we should have the flexibility to do it. The most cost-effective and efficient way. If we want to put a paragraph in that encourages the use of technology to allow more opportunities for people to participate in the more rural counties, I think it's a lot easier for folks who have lack of transportation, financial issues to call into a hearing rather than try to find a ride. And so telephonic participation is better than no participation. I just wouldn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into having to do anything by one way or the other at this point, not knowing what best practices are going to be.
Yeah, I don't think that it would be, I don't know if it would necessarily be a funding, it would save on funding, but I would want it to be an option. So when we do go back to normal and business as usual, whether that be a year from now, 2 years from now, whenever it is, I encourage all the drug courts to keep their virtual court sessions an option and open for participants that are doing well. That could be a really good incentive. So, you'd still be doing virtual, counseling sessions, but most of them would be in person. I know that the participants themselves are really feeling a lack of connection with their treatment team and with the judge. And so a lot of participants want to have court. They want to be there physically in person, but there's no reason we shouldn't, keep the virtual sessions going for when it's appropriate. Like if somebody doesn't have transportation or they don't have the means to do it, or if they're doing really well and, they're working, they don't have to leave work. They can just kind of zoom into the session for 30 minutes and then leave. So that's where my thought process was in terms of the use of technology is, I would encourage it and I would want every program to use it as a potential option when appropriate.
So does this fit in, should we put a short bullet under findings? Would that be appropriate, Susan? For
I think it would. I mean,
right. And I just wanted to voice one concern. I definitely think that the use of technology has its utility, but in terms of if there's a violation or a termination hearing, I think the defendant has the right to appear in person, and so I do not want it to do away with the defendant's due process rights in any way. I certainly think for case status hearings or check-ins or lack of transportation, if the client makes that request, but I certainly would not want the norm to be lack of confrontation of witnesses and things of that nature if there is in fact a termination or a violation hearing.
Senator, this is Jerry Cannon. I think there's a lot of effort across the state systems to figure out how do we incorporate this type of technology in for the state in general. Perhaps we can try and let those folks know that whatever they decide to do statewide is how do we address the courts at the same time.
Sure. Jill, did you have something?
I did want to go back to just the feedback when we initially opened up around, I would like to see there be a recommendation that the participating mental health courts work with the statewide, and forgive me, Alex, for you're not remembering your exact title, but basically working with Alex's group to establish universal data to review program efficacy and statewide trends. What we have right now is there's no governing body. There's just a request for data, and the data is collected differently. So if we're just looking to establish best practices, if we're looking to understand or expand, we need to start collecting data. If there's no requirement, we don't always get it, and that will hinder us.
Thank you. Going back to just the previous comment, just in wrapping that up, Jake put in, as experienced under COVID-19, the technology can Technology can be used to overcome obstacles to accessing court sessions, mental health, and other services. Susan, how do you feel about that?
Should there be a second sentence saying that, development of a statewide mental health court system should look to utilize such technology as appropriate to ensure access? I don't want to box us in, but just to make it clear, it's the idea is after COVID-19 would be good to use it where it helps.
So I guess that, to me, that's the difference between a finding and a recommendation, right? If we're doing this as a finding, it's
Right.
more of an observation of what can happen. If it's a recommendation, then it's just that, right?
Right.
So if we add that line, which I'm fine with, I would encourage moving it to the recommendation section.
That's fine.
I'm not wedded to it, so I mean, and I hate to have too many recommendations because I think they get lost. Then people get overwhelmed.
I don't think it's an inappropriate addition, Susan. I think it fits with kind of everything that we're all experiencing right now. Okay. Anything else that jumps out to anyone with our now 10 recommendations?
I don't want to lose, thank you, Senator. I don't want to lose sight of what Jill just referenced. And
Sure.
even if it's a one-liner recommendation that tied to the finding above, that a data set is mapped out and monitored to review efficacy and efficiency of any mental health court system that we implement in New Hampshire.
When you said the one above, did you mean 10?
I'm sorry, I'm just referencing, we do talk about data as an issue in our findings. So that I think was near the top of the findings. The shortage of statewide data pertaining to mental health courts. So we talk about it as a finding. So conversely at the bottom, making sure we incorporate a recommendation that establishes a statewide data system to that require, I'm trying to think off the cuff here, that a statewide data system be established to monitor the efficacy and practices implemented in a New Hampshire-based statewide mental health court system.
I apologize, Commissioner. You lost me. Statewide data system be established to monitor the efficacy. Is that right?
Jake, no apology necessary. You're doing a fantastic job. Far better than I would. I'm trying to figure out how to get to my email so I can just email it to you, but I'm having laptop deficiency at this point. A statewide data system be established to monitor the efficacy and efficacy of the New Hampshire, of any, or I don't know, of the New Hampshire mental health court system implemented. And certainly defer to Jill to provide any more substance. She was certainly a valuable member in discussing her experiences in her own mental health system, and Alex as well. Clearly, we know the value of what data tells us and tells us what to do, what not to do, and its effect on programs and the people that they're developed for. So
I think it's good.
This is Shelley. I wanted to just say, I do like number 11. I think it will put a call out to maybe bring in more participation from different mental health courts in New Hampshire to bring their data to the table. As the New Hampshire mental health courts meet monthly, we have agreed on a set of data that we share amongst each other. But we would like more mental health courts to participate. And I think that will just help us better prepare for utilizing and working with the professional consultant. when that happens. So that'll put a call out for that purpose. Which leads me to my next question. I'm wondering, do we have a role to, I guess, spell out or identify what the next step is regarding acquiring a professional consultant, how to go about that, or a timeline? Is that something that we need to do?
So that will have to be funded in the next by the next legislature through legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Unless we're able to get it covered. I mean, I can ask around and see if there are any organizations that are operating under federal grants that do that kind of thing, you know, under that grant. But just let me know if you want me to. I know that Center for Court Innovation, we're doing our strategic plan for, you know, my office, and I was hoping to incorporate the mental health courts in that strategic plan. And so I could always ask them, do they know of any organizations that do that kind of thing that would help us with this, but have it be covered under a grant?
If you are able to track an entity down that would be willing to engage with us on that, I'm sure that we have different avenues that we could pursue to see if we could make it official for the state level, either through the governor's process or with the upcoming legislature. Either way, we could, but it would certainly expedite things greatly if we did that route.
All right.
I had one request in terms of paragraph 10 recommendation. I know that we indicated as appropriate at the end, but I would also recommend some language to indicate while protecting the constitutional rights of the participants.
Sure, I like that. Okay. All right. With that, is there any further discussion regarding the 11 recommendations that the commission has put forward in this draft document?
This is Shirley. I do have one question, and it has to do with, just because this is not, this is new to me, this process, and hiring at this level a professional consultant. Just wondering how likely it is to be able to find someone. And if I'm wondering if we should consider a backup plan if there can't be someone found in a timely manner. If there's something else that should happen. Maybe there's lots of consultants, I just don't know.
Alex?
Yeah, I know that like NPC research, like this is directly in their wheelhouse. I know that they've done that with a number of states. The thing with NPC research is there's a cost to it. So if we can't find somebody to do it for, for that's operating under a grant, I know we could find an organization to do this type of work. It's just what's the cost going to be and if we can afford it.
Senator Morgan, can you speak to the next steps in the process? Because I think that, this report is then, we finalize this report, and then what are the next steps in terms of the process?
Sure. So the next steps, once we have this report in hand and it's official, I'm purely speaking from the legislative angle, to be clear, Jill. And so from my perspective, I have with this report, you all have given me and the other folks that work in the legislature that believe so strongly in supporting these types of issues related to mental health, the ammunition that we need to bring forward some substantive legislation that we can then introduce in the legislature. Obviously, election cycles being 2 years, and we have another one coming up in a couple weeks here. That's gonna just stating the obvious, going to play a role in my ability to affect change. Also, I will be using this to do absolutely everything I can to keep the progress of this commission rolling, whether I'm in the legislature or not. And I know that we have a lot of friends and allies who would like to see progress made on this front as well. So the next step is we have to take these recommendations, we have to encapsulate them into a bill or multiple bills, depending on where things land, and then introduce them in the legislature, and we need to get them signed into law. And hopefully, in the case of the consultant, if we're not able to find it outside of the budget, then we need to get that funded, and that's usually through the budget process. So that's where my head is at in terms of the next steps.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I don't, if there are any last questions, concerns about any of the 11 recommendations, we're gonna do a vote. So love to make sure, it's really important that we make sure that this is unanimous. If you have any questions or concerns, please do raise them at this point. Seeing none, I am going to, I would look for a motion from the commission to approve the final recommendations of the commission's, for the commission to put forward in our official report. I'm gonna stop my screen share so that I can conduct this roll call vote.
I would like to make a motion to accept the report as drafted today.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. And where was that second from?
Susan.
Thank you, Susan. And I will call the roll. Alan, real quick technical question. For those who are in attendance who are not technically a part of the commission, but are here with us representing designees for the commission, are they allowed to vote or not?
They don't vote.
They
don't vote.
Okay. Thank you for that. Great. So here we go, folks. We have the motion, and I will begin the roll call. Ms. Golden, how do you vote?
I approve or agree. Is that how we say it?
You just say yes. It'd be great.
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Stearns.
I vote yes.
Ms. Varney.
Yes.
Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Mr. Buffetti.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill.
Yes.
Sorry, the names are all jumping around on me here. Representative Cannon.
Yes.
Representative Waltz.
Yes.
Representative Birch.
Yes.
Ms. Scavarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Buffetti.
I already voted yes. I'll vote
Okay.
again.
Well, that's the problem. Who did I miss?
David King votes yes.
Thank you, Judge King.
The maker of the motion reaffirms her yes.
Commissioner Hanks. We're working on this. I'm used to only 5 people being in these committees, so this one's a little bit tough. We have a unanimous set of recommendations, folks, and thank you all very much for that. And I would like to ask for a motion on the entirety of the report. Do we have any questions, concerns on the report that Jake put together for us? Jake, it looks like you might want to say something.
Commissioner, did I get your motion wrong? I thought the commissioner moved to approve the report as presented.
That was my motion. Thanks, Jake.
Great. Well, then we're good to go. And I don't think I voted, so Senator Morgan is a yes. Great. Well, then we're done, folks. I want to just take one very brief moment to let you all know that I'm extremely grateful for your work and your professionalism and everything that you have done to move this really important issue forward. And I'm giving you my commitment that I'm going to do absolutely everything that I possibly can to keep this ball rolling and to make real progress. This is a wide-ranging and incredibly important issue, and I'm just grateful for everything that each and every one of you do in your professional realm to support our state and the folks suffering from mental illness. So thank you. And that concludes our commission's work. So I will be in touch with you in the coming weeks as we hopefully are able to move forward with some substantive legislation going into the next legislative term. All right.
John, this is Mary Beth. I just want to say that after the election, the 3 reps and you should get together and we should talk about strategy, about whether it comes from both the House and the Senate or just one body and how we want to proceed on this. Because I think there are some of those kind of internal discussions that are worth having.
Absolutely. I think that would be that'll be a great idea, and I hope that we can do that.
Well, we
just have to take a roll call vote to adjourn, just to remind you guys. Sorry.
Will we get a clean draft of the final report?
Yes, the final report, you will have that by email in the coming days. And if I can ever be of service to any of you, please do reach out to me. My direct email is just john@johnmorgan.org, or you can reach out through whatever other means you've been using in the course of this commission. Anything else before we do a roll call vote to adjourn?
I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you've done on this commission and your commitment towards moving this forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Phenomenal. And hold on, I'm gonna do a roll call vote without missing Judge King. All right, Representative Cannon.
Yes.
Representative Birch.
Yes.
Representative Waltz.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanks.
Yes.
Mr. Buffetti.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor. I don't think he's here. Ms. O'Neill.
Yes.
Ms. Stearns.
Yes.
Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Judge King.
Yes.
Ms. Golden.
Yes.
Ms. Varney.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Starkey, no. Mr. Starkey, we don't have. Ms. Gavarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Davis is not here, and Senator Morgan is a yes. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
You well.